In this video, we are going to talk about the different shapes that a histogram could have. So 3 different types or 3 different shapes of a histogram are shown below. So if you look at the first one, all of these amounts or levels are pretty much the same, and if they are different, they're very, very close together. When that occurs, we call that a uniform histogram. So all the bars are relatively the same height. The middle graph, so if we look at the middle graph, it kind of has a mountain shape to it or a bell shape to it. The other thing we notice about it is that if we were to draw a line in the middle here, right in the middle of the graph, the 2 halves look very, very similar. And if we were to fold that graph in half on that line, those 2 images, those 2 halves of the graph would overlap or be very, very close to overlapping. So when that occurs, that type of histogram is called symmetric. And it is because of the fact that both halves are mirror images of one another, or close to being mirror images. We say mirror images because when you look at a mirror, you see the reflection, you see the same thing. So with symmetric graphs, if, like I said again, both halves look very, very similar, we call it symmetric. And then we have this last graph over here. The last graph is when it almost looks like the graph is leaning to one side or the other. And we call that graph skewed. It is a skewed graph when the biggest bar or the bar with the greatest height is not in the middle. Okay, so now we're going to try some examples where you're given pictures of graphs and we need to figure out if they are uniform, symmetric, or skewed. So looking at part A here, we see that bell curve or the mountain curve. We also notice that if we were to draw a line in the middle of this graph, those 2 halves would be close to overlapping. We have the same image on the left side of that green line and the right side of the green line. So we call that graph symmetric. And then for part B, the highest or the tallest bar is over here on the left. It's not in the middle, and they are not all the same height. So our graph here is skewed. And now you can practice identifying the shapes of histograms on your own.